For those older folks in the audience, The Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, Stand By Me, River's Edge. What are those? They're all coming-of-age movies from the 80s. I'm sure there's a bunch of them from the 90s and the aughts as well. But as a Gen Xer and a child of the 80s, those are the ones that I remember. Why are we talking about coming-of-age movies today on Construction Genius? Because there's another thing that's coming of age, and that is modular construction or industrialized construction. And my guest today is Roger Krulak. If you go way back in the day to episode 34 of Construction Genius, over 200 episodes ago, Roger was on the show discussing the modular construction revolution. And today we are catching up to see how that revolution is progressing. And he uses that coming of age analogy because I think it's a very apt one. It's one where we're no longer in the infancy of modular. We're not yet fully mature. There's many things that need to happen in the construction world for it to be fully embraced, but progress is being made, and the adoption of industrialized construction processes is happening at a rapid clip and is more and more inevitable. So we're going to catch up with Roger, get the latest insights, see how his company has changed and been growing, and give you a few action items that you can quickly lay hold of to make sure that you're on the leading edge, not the bleeding edge, but the leading edge of thinking around using modular construction in your organization. So enjoy my conversation with Roger, share it with other people who you think would benefit from listening, and thank you for listening to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Roger, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thank you so much, Eric. Good to see you.
I had you on the show way back in the day, 2019, I think, hundreds of episodes ago, and it's great to have you back on. As we sit here in mid to late 2023, how would you describe the current state of industrialized construction in the United States?
So industrialized construction is rapidly coming of age in the United States. The industry, meaning the construction industry, and specifically the housing side of the construction industry, and for our purposes, multifamily, the deficit is at this point, given conventional construction, unachievable. And that means that collectively we have to find other ways of meeting that need. And the need at latest numbers I saw is north of 7 million. 7 million's a big number, and we don't produce anywhere near that as a country.
7 million housing units of some description or another.
Yeah, 7 million of some sort needed all over the country. And you can pick the reason. There's the affordable, which gets labeled every day. There's the workforce housing, businesses, Intel opening up factories in Ohio and Northern Oregon, or Electric Boat opening, having 15,000 new employees, engineer types in Connecticut, or damage from flooding. I mean, it go, on and on and on. If you look at it as a big swath, as if your windshield wiper spreading across the United States and looking at all of the needs, they are collectively colossal and unachievable based on current processes.
Now, you use this phrase, Roger, coming of age. When I think of that, I think of like a coming of age movie, right? You got this little kid, turns into a teenager, looks like maybe it'll be an adult. Are we saying that modular and industrialized construction is about a teenager now, would you say?
As a metaphor, I think that's pretty good. I mean, I think it is a maturing business. And I think that's probably the reason I used coming of age, because I don't think it is a mature business yet, but I do think it is maturing. So if you look at sort of standard business development knowledge, it is not mature, but it is well past its inception point where you're at sort of a hockey stick growth maturity of players in the market and becoming a marketable industry product business.
Let me ask you this then. What are some areas where the industrialized construction and modular is coming of age that people may not be aware of that will help perhaps change their perspective on the processes and the industry and help them maybe adopt it a little bit more rapidly?
So when you're doing development, there are several stakeholders, and the stakeholders are the authority having jurisdiction locally, the developer himself, the banks or whoever is providing debt financing, and the method in which the trades associated with how you're going to build those projects. And all of those stakeholders need to, at some level, buy into the way in which you're going to create that space and that there is a market for that location, et cetera, so on and so forth. And when we talked, was it 4 or 5 years ago? The industry was looking at modular construction as an anomaly rather than as an opportunity, and that has shifted. And that's what I mean by what I'm saying.
Yeah. So why do you think that shift has occurred?
Necessity is the mother of invention, to coin a phrase. The need cannot be met with what we're doing currently, and our population is growing. We're a pretty wealthy country that doesn't seem to be able to provide housing for a good portion of the people that live here. So it's the reason you need to find solutions.
As you're looking at the marketplace at the moment, I know you're over on the East Coast, but you're expanding to the West Coast. Tell us a little bit about that expansion and the challenges associated with that.
Well, I mean, it's another marketplace. I've been playing on the East Coast market from development and construction for a number of years, 20 plus. And the West Coast, things, just like any other geography, run a little differently. What I can say is the openness of the construction community on the West Coast, and developers for that matter, seems at the moment to be even more open than they are over here on the East Coast.
Why do you think that is?
I just think culturally, it's a little more experimental in its general nature. And so I think that that's the reason. I don't know what else to chalk it up to. The other thing that is obviously a driver is that construction costs in California, for instance, are significantly higher than they are for San Francisco, they're significantly higher than they are in New York, which is hard to believe, but they are significantly higher. And so as a result of that, the need to solve for a significant deficit in cost versus value is one of the drivers. But I also think that generally, in my experience, they seem to be more open to invention or technology as a way of solving the problem.
What do you think is the biggest mistake that people make? I'm thinking from the developer's point of view particularly, but you can include other folks. When they're looking at industrialized solutions in construction or modular, what's the biggest mistake that people make?
I think the biggest mistake is that we often, as human beings, and certainly as people of habit, fall into the same conventional process which we're used to doing. You always do what you've always done because you're pretty comfortable doing it. It's that way with so many things in life. And the industry is such a large industry, 13.5% of the world economy. And in order to move that in a direction, it takes a lot of energy and forward effort. And in order to be effective in thinking about utilizing any form of industrialized construction modular, it needs to be explored very early in the process. So you have a developer who says, I want to build a student housing in Santa Monica, just making stuff up. And now I need to talk to the person who owns the land, the developer, and a potential bank. And I'm going to progress the process enough so that I can provide enough information to all of the stakeholders. Now you've moved along a path and now things start to develop. They seem to make sense. And now if you haven't considered alternative methodologies of producing that, it's getting harder and harder. So oftentimes, because those stakeholders are early on, then don't consider the options, they end up doing what they've always done.
In setting up your factories, is there any major difference between the factory you have on the West Coast and the factory you have on the East Coast?
There are some similarities. The similarities they're pretty large. They're almost 100,000 feet. We are actually collaborating and co-locating with some of our partners. On the East Coast, we're tenants of one of the larger transportation companies on the East Coast of the United States. On the West Coast, we are co-located with our steel manufacturer. So the economies of process are incredibly valuable. As space, the things we build are big, but they're not rocket ship engines, but they have to be moved around in large spaces. So we always look for large spaces that have plenty of storage. And both of them have that. And they're both on the water. So you can potentially ship via boat and not worry so much about the cross-state permitting, et cetera, that has to happen. So those are the things that are the same. And they're both located in areas that have a history of understanding manufacturing. And the people available who do have that kind of experience in both Connecticut and in Oregon is very long-standing history of manufacturing and understanding what goes into that.
In your factories, what parts of the project are you manufacturing and putting together?
So we assemble the entire project. So the structure, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, finishes, even the hallway finishes, the facade, it's all part of our system. We don't necessarily manufacture all of that in our factory. Some of it we do, some of it we don't. And depending on the project, the volume and the complexity, we shift between make and buy, which is typical of manufacturing, not necessarily of construction. So we can manufacture most everything that goes into our buildings, but we do assemble everything that goes into the building. So give us a platform to sit on and everything above it is mods all the way to the roof.
And so does that necessitate your MEP subs coming into the factory and working there, or how do you handle that?
No, we're all FullStack employees. Everybody that works in the factory is a FullStack employee. We have no subs. We have material suppliers. We have manufacturers that work for us and with us. But in the factory, they're all employees of FullStack.
And what about on the job site itself?
Yeah, so there you have a licensed trade for all of the major disciplines. You have a general contractor, generally somebody who's organizing the installation of the mods and all the associated what we call mate line, tie together of all of the pieces that are built in the factory.
And so you're not the general contractor on most of your projects?
Mostly not. We can be, but we're mostly not.
Is that a shift in your business, or is that just something you've always chosen to do?
We might change our mind, but right now we've decided we don't want to be general contractors. It's a very different business. We're doing 80+% of the work in the factory. So it's a specialization that can provide value to the end user, to the developer or end user. But it's just a whole other set of requirements that we haven't ventured into at this point.
So in your business development processes, are you mainly selling to the developer, or are you also cultivating relationships with the GCs and the subs?
Yes to all of those things, although we are heading in the direction of being developers ourselves in collaboration with some of the developers that we've been speaking to. The interesting thing about residential development versus industrialized businesses is that residential development is as lumpy as the stock market, and factories want to be busy all the time. So blending those two as an opportunity is probably one of the bigger challenges. And the way that we are going to solve that is to develop for ourselves.
So as you put on your future glasses or your future hat or something like that, 10 years from now, where do you think we are in terms of industrialized construction and the use of it, not only residential, but perhaps more commercial applications?
As I've mentioned to you before, the word modular industrialized construction is so all-encompassing, but the volumetric modular construction that we do, and I've explained what that means, it has lots of uses, but it also has a lot of things it doesn't work so well for. So the lots of uses are, as I've already mentioned, housing that's student or affordable or market rate, hotels, hospital beds, really good for parking lot or restaurants, independent living facilities. So all those things have potential. There are other industrialized methodologies that work for commercial or tilt-up buildings, industrialized plants, all those things. But I'm certainly no expertise in it. I've been around it for a long time. And I believe that just that market alone has room for a very large industry, which is still maturing. So just one subject, one process, there is a whole lot of use.
All right. I hope you're enjoying my discussion with Roger. And it's that time in the show where I do one of my exciting commercials for the one book every construction leader must read, and that is Construction Genius. If you've got the video here today, you can see on the screen that we've got 4.9 ratings, 28 ratings. And if we scroll down the screen here, you can take a look at some of those reviews. I like this one here. Be inspired and elevated. Valuable insight for anyone in the construction business. Great read. A great book for any business owner and executive team. Practical, actionable advice. A must read. Great training tool for your construction team. So you see, there's a variety of real life people giving real life reviews to the Construction Genius book. And as you're looking here on the video, you can get a Kindle for $9.99, a hardcover for $29, and then the paperback for $20. So go out to Amazon, purchase yourself a copy today. I know you won't regret it. And now back to the interview with Roger. What is the biggest frustration that you have in terms of the work you do? And what do you focus on in order to try and chip away at that frustration if it's something that you actually control?
I wish I controlled everything. I think the question you're asking is, what are the two biggest pain points? And to me, there's two major pain points. One of them you asked about, and I have talked about a little bit, which is that once we build our mods and do 80% of the work, it has to be installed on site. And the cost of doing that has to be managed so that you give value to the end user, whether that be a developer or a customer, et cetera. And that's still a pain point in this industry because that's still young, even younger than the industry itself. And then the other, which I've also mentioned, is keeping a factory busy is what makes it make money and also makes it more efficient and cost effective. And so the industries, even though the value proposition goes in both directions, they're really not market and volatility wise suited for each other. So that's a pain point as well.
What advice do you give to developers when they're considering industrialized route versus the traditional route? How should they go through that evaluation process and the pros and the cons?
So a couple things. I would say, first of all, start early. As I mentioned before, you really want to look at this as you're thinking about the potential for the project, not once you've committed, and to see if you can save any money by designing it in a way that can be built effectively modularly. And the thing I'd like to say to them is that you don't really lose anything by doing that, because you can build a building that you've schematically created in a modular fashion conventionally without a problem. You can't so easily do the opposite. So our process is pretty logical. It's trying to organize things in ways that make sense and can be manufactured. And so as a result of that, it's a logical way of organizing a building. If you think and organize it that way, you have not lost the ability to make choices moving down the path. Don't be afraid of designing it modularly. It's a good idea, and it's going to be good whether you build it conventionally or modularly.
What is the biggest hype that is around industrial construction that is just totally overblown and people should avoid at all costs?
A great question. I'm going to riff off your question a little bit. I hope you don't mind that. So what I think is oft misunderstood is that industrialization requires economies of scale and economies of process. So in order to really benefit significantly from industrialized construction, you have to commit to enough volume so that you can realize it. That's hard for people who are used to doing one-off jobs that are 15 units this time, 300 units that time. But I plead that you don't get discouraged by that opportunity, because the reality is that what needs to be repeated doesn't mean all the buildings have to look the same, doesn't mean all the units have to be the same, doesn't mean the unit mix is the same. It just means you have to embrace the idea that you're trying to build products that meet market need, but are as similar as the market will bear. And that's a hard thing because it's a big shift. We somehow managed as an industry to pretend that every time we build a building, it's never been built before. Understand, it's totally false, but it is a delusion that drives our act. For example, if you talk to a developer in Colorado today, and they say, well, we're thinking about modular construction, I'd like to know what it costs to build a building. They're not going to tell you what the building is, which is, of course, what does it cost to build a car, even though you don't know what kind of car it is that you want to go. Then there is a cultural problem that we've created that says they shouldn't tell you what their budget is. They're just going to ask you how much it costs because they want to see if they could somehow buy it better by just not disclosing information, which is a delusion, right? I mean, at the end of the day, there's a market need and there's an opportunity. And if somehow we can shift our focus to something that is more collaborative. Like, I have to build a building for $300 a foot or $285 a foot, and here's what has to go into it, and here's the market need. It's more effective, and it is process-wise more effective. We've lost that. So my encouragement is collaborate, because deals don't work unless they work. I mean, I can't, as a modular company, make investment deal work if you have to build a building for $100 a foot, or you have to deliver it in 2 months, and it's 300,000 feet. I can't really help you. But if there is an opportunity to, say, even in today's market, speed up the process by 50% or cut some costs, there's a huge advantage to that.
Do these economies of scale limit the types of developers then that can pursue this type of building?
I think from our perspective that what we do, if you're not interested in building multiple sort of enough volume so that you can take advantage of it, or you're not willing to take something that's already been built and repeat it, yeah, it might be complicated. But you don't need to have a 400,000 square foot project in order to be effective. You could say, I want to build 25 4-story brownstones in the middle of Ladue, Wisconsin, and that might be very effective, because basically we don't really care where the boxes are going at the end of the day, right? We just want them going through the factory, and the more repetitive they are, the faster and more efficient we build them.
That notion that every construction project is unique, obviously that comes from a couple of things. Number one, it hasn't been built on this piece of dirt before, perhaps, and also with this particular group of project partners, designers, and all that kind of stuff. So is there ever going to come a time in construction, you think, where that whole notion no longer exists? Or do you think that's just something where you're going to always be pushing against that particular perspective?
I really can't continue this conversation without thinking about sort of AI and the technology that's associated with it. I mean, the ability to analyze multiple lots and find similar products all over the country, if you do a little digging, is available online, and you can figure out what needs to happen. So my answer to your question is, the forward-thinking developers who are using data in order to drive their decisions definitely will get there.
That's interesting you brought that up. How is AI impacting your business?
It's starting to, for the reasons that we just described.
I would imagine that would help your business development if you can come to the developers with a good pitch, huh?
Yeah, super excited about that opportunity and exploring it on many levels. We do some low-level AI in how we think about organizing buildings, and as the ability to do what we just talked about, which is like identify 3,000 places that this product that this developer believes in can go, makes life a lot easier, right? If he's got 3,000 places to go, we're busy for a year or two.
Yeah, that's interesting. So again, as you look at the next, let's say 36 months, right? So we're not going 10 months, but 36 months from now, what are some immediate steps you think that developers, GCs, and subs should be taking in order to further explore and begin to utilize industrialized construction?
So first thing is embrace design, build, or we call it design, manufacture, construct. Embrace that concept as a way to achieve what it is that your goals are. And let go of the delusion that not giving somebody a price is going to yield you a better solution. Most people have proven that to themselves over and over again. And understand that building in a factory is extraordinarily high quality, highly sustainable, and understandable, quite simply. So that is something you should explore, and explore it early. And then over the next 36 months, I think you're going to see a number of developers try to integrate modular construction in their business model as a way of solving their problem. Now, how that happens is going to be the next 36 months. Like whether it is developer invests in a modular company so that they can secure space, or whether the developer starts his own modular company, or whether a modular company white labels its services and products for that. I mean, we don't know how that's going to evolve yet, because as we talked, it's a maturing industry, but I think you're going to see a lot of that in the next 36 months.
Excellent. So how much time are you spending out in Portland?
At least a week a month, if not more.
Excellent. So then last time I asked you for a restaurant recommendation in New York. This time I'm going to go Portland, because obviously I'm sure you're hitting some restaurants in Portland. Do you have a particular recommendation?
Oh, the food in Portland, I have to say, and I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I have to say the food in Portland rivals most anywhere in the United States. And so I have some favorites. I mean, there is a Japanese restaurant from Tokyo and in Portland called Furi Izakaya, which I think is incredible. There is a fantastic reverse steakhouse, look it up, called G Love, which is the best name I think ever. And it's a reverse steakhouse, meaning that the vegetables are in the center of the plate and the meat and protein goes to the side of the plate, but they serve all of them. And then there is a Peruvian restaurant right in the Pearl District called Andia. Those are three. I mean, I could go on and on, but you're pretty safe. There's a lot of great restaurants there.
We got Peruvian, we got Japanese, and we've got non-traditional steakhouse.
Yeah, I would say Pacific Northwest, non-traditional, steak and small. You could eat there as a vegan and be super happy, and you could eat there as like carnivore or an omnivore and be super happy.
Awesome. Great. We'll link a couple of those in the show notes. Roger, I appreciate you coming on, giving us the update. And I think I'll have you back on another 3 to 5 years, and then we can get another update on where Modular's going.
Sounds good. Hopefully sooner than that. But it's always good to see you, Eric, and I always appreciate your questions.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Okay, be well.
All right. Thanks for listening to my interview today with Roger. And Roger was sharing some pretty cool restaurants that he goes to out in Portland, Oregon. So you know what I did is I took a minute here, and if you're still watching the video, you can see these restaurants. We've got this one, Furi Izakaya. That's the Japanese one. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Then you've got the G Love. Woo! That is the steakhouse, the reverse steakhouse. And then we've got Los Andes. That's the Peruvian place. So if you're in Portland, Oregon, you want to check out one of those restaurants, feel free to do that. And one last website to check out, of course, is my website. And specifically, if you own a construction company and you do more than $10 million of revenue and you need a coach to help you to take your business to the next level, working with yourself as the owner of the company or with your senior leaders, go out to my website, constructiongenius.com. Go to the contact page right here, put in your name, your email, and your phone, and I'll contact you. We can spend a couple minutes on the phone together, chatting about if or how I can help you to make sure that your leaders are performing at the highest possible level and your company is achieving what you wanted to achieve. Thanks for listening to Construction Genius here today, and I'll catch you on the next episode.